Objection.
Mr. President.
Senator from Florida.
Thank you, Mr. President. I too want the Senate to move to negotiating with the House on the budget. I think it's critically important. And let me say I have tremendous respect for the legislative process in our republic at the state level, local level, the federal level. And in fact, my colleagues are correct. Oftentimes in this place, we have to vote for things that we don't like because it's a product of compromise. It may not have everything we want, but it gives us the things that we need. I certainly have been on the losing end of multiple votes in this place during the time I've been here because I'm in the minority, both in party and sometimes in view. And so I certainly understand that part of it. And that's why I voted against the budget. I'm glad we finally produced a budget after 1,000 days, but I would say to you that that budget is one that I think is deficient, and that's why I voted against the budget. Nevertheless, I believe that this institution should move forward in negotiating the differences between our budget and the budget that the House has so that we can finally have a budget in this country and so this country can move forward. The only thing that I'm asking for, the only thing my colleagues are asking for is that as part of that negotiation, if I may finish my statement and I'll entertain any questions you may have, that as part of that negotiation, that the issue of the debt limit not be included. Now, I've heard here today statements made that there were X number of amendments filed and they didn't include the debt limit. I think the reason is because most of us agreed that that was an issue that needed to be dealt with on its own. This is not just some issue. It's an extremely consequential issue, one that needs to be debated in and of itself because it is the function not just of an annual budget. The massive debt that our country faces is a function of a structural problem that we have. We basically have these massive government programs that are going bankrupt, and if we don't deal with it, it just keeps getting worse. I've also heard statements made here today that, well, we can't raise the debt limit even if we wanted to because of the way it's structured. And that's why I'm puzzled. Why then the objection? Why then the objection to a very simple notion, and that is we can be in conference today with the House. We can be negotiating with the House this very moment if all we do is just say, look, go ahead, negotiate the differences with the budget, negotiate taxes. If it has a tax increase, I'm voting against it, but negotiate that, negotiate all these sorts of things. But the debt limit cannot be part of it. It has to be dealt with separately. And I just don't understand the objection to that being in there. I would say one more thing about this thing and the amendments. And the cautionary tale there, the next time someone comes up to you and says, don't file any more amendments, you're slowing the place down, maybe you should file them, because if you don't file them, you got to hold your peace forever. So, but that being the case, look, I think we need to move to a negotiation with the House with a very simple language in it that it should not have a debt limit increase. And so I am going to move and ask for unanimous consent that the Senate proceed to the consideration of calendar number 33, House Concurrent Resolution 25, that the amendment which is at the desk, the text of Senate Concurrent Resolution 8, the budget resolution passed by the Senate, be inserted in lieu thereof, and that House Concurrent Resolution 25, as amended, be agreed to. The motion to reconsider be made and laid upon the table, that the Senate insist on its amendments, request a conference with the House on the disagreeing votes of the two houses, and that the chair be authorized to appoint conferees on the part of the Senate, all with no intervening action or debate. Further, that a conference report in relation to House Concurrent Resolution 25 not be in order in the Senate that includes reconciliation instructions to increase the debt ceiling.
Is there objection?
Object.
The objection is heard.
Well, then we're in the same place we were before. Basically, this was Senatees. What I basically said is, I want the Senate to go into negotiations with the House. And the only thing we ask is that when they come back, there not be reconciliation instructions in there, that the debt limit be dealt with or increased. Because the debt limit is so consequential for our country that it needs to be dealt with on its own. And let me remind everybody of what we're dealing with here. Let me tell you, this is a bipartisan debt. I said this yesterday, I'll repeat it today. This is a debt that grew over the last 20 or 30 years with the cooperation of both parties, unfortunately. Although we've never seen anything like the last 5 years. It is a function of a structural problem in our spending programs. If we don't deal with those programs, it is going to collapse our economy within our lifetime and certainly with that of our children. It is time to deal with it now. That issue should be debated on its own, not as part of a budget negotiation that deals with a one-year spending agreement.